What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Thursday, September 8th, 2016. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today, and I'm sorry to report the toll-free number is still down. At this point, RBN is looking at going with an alternative system other than Vonage, and just do a web search. Vonage sucks, and you will see how this company has really lost their reputation for any kind of service and support, and really, it shows how bad things are coming in this country when even large companies are just saying, oh, to heck with the customers. Once we get their money, that's all that we really care about. So, if you want to call into the show, the numbers are 512-716-1603, 512-716-1883, and 512-716-1897. Mike is sitting in our control room, twiddling the dials, and ready to answer the phone when you call on in. Couple of quick program notes. The Lady Claire will be joining us in hour number 3 of our program tomorrow. Next week on Tuesday, Don Wiskin of Extendovite will be spending some more time with us to talk about his fine product, which really does work. I take it myself here. And we've got some other guests coming up here. We're nailing down the days, but we're going to start getting some more on-air guests here because I know you're all sick and tired of just hearing my voice about all this stuff. So let's get into the news today. Hillary Clinton, after 287 days, finally held a press conference, if you can actually call it that. It was very heavily controlled, heavily staged. She issued a statement and then took only 6 questions, all of which were softballs, and all of which were questions that Hillary wanted to be asked, like, do you think you're treated differently because you're a woman? And then she walks out, and that's it. But the big news coming out of that press conference is a photograph shows her clearly wearing a radio earpiece. So it wasn't Hillary Clinton answering those questions. It was somebody backstage with a microphone feeding her things to say. She's a complete fraud and a facade. And that came on out there. And, of course, the Hillary Clinton campaign is out there saying, oh, no, that's ridiculous. Hillary would never use an earpiece, and that's just silly. Actually, it's a throat lozenge in case she gets another one of those coughing fits that you're not supposed to pay any attention to. And she'll just whip that little lozenge out of her ear and shove it down her throat and just proceed with doing Hillary's important business. And at this point, the hills are alive with the smell of bovine poo. Because already WikiLeaks has come out with emails revealing that Hillary Clinton has been using a radio earpiece since 2009. That's why she's afraid of a real debate with Donald Trump. She can't think for herself anymore. Remember that rally she was at, and there was a ruckus, and she froze. And this big guy gets up behind her and says, you're okay, keep talking. All right, we're going to grab a phone call. Ed in Michigan, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. How's it going?
Well, except for a bad head cold, I'm doing okay.
Okay. Now, I had to be in court 2 days ago, and the lawyer sent me a bill for $900, and I responded with a claim that he was trespassing on my property and attempting to administrate my property without my consent. And that if he
Wait a minute. We don't have the context of that. You were in court and you availed yourself of the services of a lawyer?
No, I'm perfectly competent to handle my own legal affairs.
Well, why is this lawyer thinking that you owe him money?
It was for an ambulance bill where I was a passenger in a vehicle, and the girl, wrecked into a telephone pole. It was my car with no insurance, and I was trying to get the car back. In other words, I was trying to get my car back from the girl. I didn't want her to have it. And I was in the car at the time.
Okay, well, it sounds to me, first of all, that this is not the kind of show that offers legal advice, and I think you need to avail yourself of your local legal aid society in order to sort this mess out. But it's how you tell your story is very, very confusing. You say a lawyer's presented you with a bill, then you say the bill actually comes from an ambulance company, and I think you need to sort of simplify and have a précis as to what's going on and why you don't think that you owe this bill, which is really what it comes down to is a dispute over the bill. So thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to let you go and get on back to the pressing issues of the day here. Now, Julian Assange has gone out blasting Hillary Clinton and the liberal press for this habit they have gotten into of claiming all of her critics are agents of Russia. They're all Russians. Everybody who loves her is an American, and everybody who doubts she could be president, you must be a Russian agent. And it really is a little bit silly. Now, we're going to take a moment here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining our network at this time, and we're talking obviously about politics. We're talking about Hillary Clinton is clearly in a defensive mode in regard to her campaign, and she's out there just saying that anybody who's talking about her scandals is a Russian agent. Anybody who mentions Vince Foster, you're a Russian agent. Everybody who mentions Benghazi, you're a Russian agent. And it's really absurd on the face of it, but they really don't have anything else to work with at this moment. The reality is Hillary Clinton came into this election season with more baggage than Kim Kardashian on a photo shoot tour. And they don't know how to get rid of it. And I guess these political analysts and PR specialists and the rest, they're still used to a world where if they have enough money, they can put enough commercials on TV, and they can mesmerize the American people and make them forget all about the reasons they have to vote against their candidate. That world doesn't work anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. And this idea that they're trying to literally go back to the 1950s, you know, with red baiting. Oh, if you're opposed to Hillary Clinton, you're a Russian agent. That's absurd. It's questionable whether that obvious a stunt would have worked even in the 1950s and 1960s, but it certainly is not going to work here in the 21st century. It just doesn't work. Now, we've had a story that came out of governmentslaves.info pointing out, and we mentioned this the other day ourselves, claims that the Kremlin is meddling in the U.S. elections makes a good cover for massive vote rigging. Anybody finds any vote rigging in the November election, oh, it must be the Russians. It's the Russians doing it. Couldn't be anybody else. Really? Were the Russians doing all that rigging during the primaries? No. It was Hillary's people. We got them on video. It was Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She had to step down from her job over that. And there are lawsuits throughout the court systems in several states, including one class action lawsuit, that the election rigging going on during the primaries was domestic in origin. And remember, those electronic voting machines are not plugged into the internet. They operate on these memory cards that are hand-carried, possibly substituted, from the polling places to the central tabulation facility. Russia can't get at that because they're over in Russia. But they're pushing this very hard to try and have a handy cover. Ballots missing over here? Had to be Russia. Voters' registrations vanished mysteriously. Oh, it was Russia. Just take our word for it. It was Russia. In the most extreme, what they could do is try and invalidate a Donald Trump win by saying, oh, obviously Russia rigged the election. We'll just nullify this one and we'll have another election to replace it in, maybe 10, 15, 20 years. Now, Assange is out there saying that there will be a new batch of Clinton emails next week. And I'm sure that over in Hillary's campaign headquarters, they're already sweating bullets, because there can't be anything good. We're in these final weeks leading up to the election, and anybody who's got really damaging dirt on Hillary, now is when they're going to release it. Now, the current emails that have already come out, Judge Napolitano has looked at it and said very clearly the case can be made that there has been obstruction of justice, because the evidence that Hillary committed these crimes is there, and somebody ordered FBI Director James Comey to ignore the evidence and say we're not pressing charges. I don't think Comey would have done that on his own, because it is so obvious and heavy-handed, and it's provoked a huge backlash. It's destroyed what little remained of the reputation of the FBI. And Napolitano says it had to be the White House. And that is obstruction of justice, and that is an impeachable offense. So Congress, do your job. Yes, he's only there for another 4 months. But if you want to be reelected, it's time to actually show the American people that you're going to do your constitutional duty. Now, the Hillary Clinton campaign is out there literally threatening the corporate media not to go anywhere near the issue of Hillary Clinton's health. We know that a lot of the pro-Hillary media institutions like Huffington Post have started terminating contributors or writers who are talking about Hillary's health. We're seeing Greta Van Susteren got let go from Fox. Dr. Drew lost his show. And the official story is, oh, well, we were already thinking of letting them go here. It's just a coincidence they were let go right after talking about Hillary's health. There's nothing there. So only the tinfoil hat-wearing, wingnut kook conspiracy wackos would even think there's a connection between these. And my mailbox has been filled up with all this junk email about Hillary's health is fine. You should be looking at Donald Trump. Donald Trump is clearly showing signs of serious mental illness. This is Hillary's campaign in their little game of projection. Whatever Hillary Clinton is suspected of being or doing, they immediately throw it onto Donald Trump. No. It's not we who are corrupt. It's Donald Trump. It's not Hillary who's mentally ill. It's Donald Trump. And I don't know who her chief campaign strategist is, but they're not very good when they're behaving this obviously and predictably. So Hillary is effectively out there saying that she has 2 words for anybody who mentions her health issues. Vince Foster. Now, a lot of people were on Donald Trump regarding this Trump University and some of the financial issues it got into. But the corporate media is giving a clean pass on Bill Clinton, who was the honorary chancellor at Laureate International Universities, the world's largest for-profit college conglomerate. And Bill Clinton was paid nearly $18 million by Laureate International Universities. At the same time, its affiliated nonprofit was receiving millions of dollars in grants from Hillary Clinton's State Department. There's the financial link for the corruption. But no, we've got to report that Donald Trump said something absurd again today because that's the job of the prostitutes and the correspondents. We're not here to actually tell you the news. If you want the news, go over to the independent media. No, wait, I shouldn't have said that. Our ad revenues are down. But that is the attitude. I mean, they're not even trying to hide the fact that they're biased in favor of Hillary. They're openly saying, yeah, we've got an opinion, we're going to force it on you. Now, traditionally, newspapers, TV news shows confined their own opinion to the format of an editorial. When you opened up a newspaper or you watched a TV news show, it was news, facts, and then there would be an editorial. This is what we think. Today, it's all editorial. It's all their bias and opinion out there, trying to convince you that Hillary Clinton should be in the White House and Donald Trump is a danger to the existence of planet Earth. And they're out there just trying to portray Donald Trump as this huge threat. Now they're kicking up a big stink over whether or not he supported the Iraq War. It doesn't really make any difference. Back when the Iraq War was starting up, Donald Trump wasn't in the government. It wasn't up to him. The question is, who supported the Iraq War who was in a position to have an influence, such as Hillary Clinton, as a senator? Now, the Democrats are still trying to deal with the FBI data dump regarding Hillary's email server, and one of her talking points was that Colin Powell told her it was okay to use a private email server for state business. And apparently, Democratic Representative Elijah Cummings released a copy of an email exchange between Hillary Clinton and Colin Powell, attempting to bolster the story that Hillary was only doing what Colin Powell told her it was okay to do. Colin Powell made me do it, Mommy. It wasn't my idea. It was all Colin's fault. He said it would be okay. But the reality is, if you read this email chain, that's not what Colin Powell said. What he said was, yeah, it's possible. You can bypass the state servers. And then he went on to say, there are dangers to that. You're risking national security. And so this release of this email chain by Elijah Cummings actually documents and confirms Hillary Clinton was aware of the lack of security and the real danger involved in using a private email server. Now, yesterday, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump squared off over there at NBC News, and originally they were trying to claim it was a debate, and it wasn't, because at no time did Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton actually debate each other. It was a forum where one at a time Donald Trump and then Hillary Clinton got up there and answered questions at this forum. And even without the advantage of being able to show that Hillary cannot think on her own feet, Donald Trump walked away with it. The polls are showing, as of the last time I checked, 69% of the viewers thought Donald Trump won, 27% thought Hillary Clinton had won. Now, NBC came out with another poll. Donald Trump is leading Hillary Clinton by 19% with veterans and military voters. And meanwhile, the corporate media is still out there trying to find some way they can claim Hillary's out there. They're oversampling Democrats. Now they're oversampling blacks and women. And they're literally trying to cherry pick the people they're talking to get the results they want. And they're still coming up short. I got an email solicitation from MoveOn.org saying, Hillary's lead is shrinking. We must do something. What are you willing to do about this? Applaud. And then I asked them to cancel my subscription because I'd never actually signed up for MoveOn.org. They just grabbed my address and put it in there. All right, let's grab a phone call. Kyle in Pennsylvania. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Oh, first of all, that forum last night was the biggest farce I've ever seen. And Donald Trump still absolutely walked away with it. As far as that earpiece shenanigans go, going back and watching segments of that forum, you can clearly see that when Clinton is asked a question, she repeats the question a lot, which is buying herself time, and she's getting fed information via that earpiece. Furthermore, if you look at the way Matt Lauer, who is a firm donator and a big part of the Clinton Foundation, I think it's almost safe to say, I mean, he was pretty vicious on her at some point. She might be losing the mainstream media in many terms. They might be seeing that her ship is sinking, her campaign is going down in flames. They might be able to read the writing on the wall and are jumping ship from her. If that is the case, forget about it. She's cooked and she's done.
Well, I think it's more a case of the corporate media looking at their audience demographics, looking at the public reaction to them here on the independent media, and realizing that they are shredding what little remains of their credibility with the American people by continuing to support Hillary's totally absurd and pathetic explanations about all of her scandals here. Right now, only 6% of the American people think the corporate media has any credibility at all. You can't run a news network on numbers like that. And so I think it's more a case of self-preservation. They're realizing that Hillary Clinton has become an albatross around all their necks, and they got to do something about it. Or by the start of next year, the corporate media will be the fringe, and the independent media will be seen as the mainstream. I think it already is. But
the best thing Clinton could do at this point is, stay away from any sort of.
Okay, we got to put you on hold. Got a commercial coming up. Stay on the line. I'll come right back to you. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here, and we're going to go back to Kyle in Pennsylvania. Can you just sort of pick up where you left off? Kyle?
I think that the big thing is, you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, the big thing that shocks me is that Donald Trump is not beating Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is beating Hillary Clinton. And the fact that she is not following the blueprint that Obama set with his original election, not embracing any of this internet, sort of Periscope and web seminar format, not reaching out on any sort of viable social network in any meaningful way. She is her own worst enemy. And if Donald Trump can just not have any gigantic faux pas, I think Clinton is in a self-destruct mode, and she's her own worst enemy at this point.
Well, at this point, the whole Democratic Party is self-destructing by having her as the candidate. Not as bad as the Libertarian Party just did, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I don't think it's a case of I don't think it's a case of Hillary Clinton not knowing to go into the internet. It's Hillary Clinton's campaign realizing that the internet is definitely enemy country as far as Hillary Clinton is concerned. When Obama was running, first of all, Hillary was having to deal with her scandal accumulation even back then, but it wasn't as bad as it is today. And Obama found that the internet and the independent media was friendly territory. Okay, but Hillary knows that the internet and the independent media is not friendly territory. They can't put anything up that allows comments, or she's savage. And she has a very large online digital team. I had a reason to go looking through her campaign staff, and she's got a lot of people working on internet outreach and IT tech. She's got a lot of people writing software for her, mostly I think for offensive purposes. But she can't find a base anywhere with the internet, because people on the internet, people who are reading the independent media, know what Hillary Clinton really is, and there's no way she can win them over. So it's really a case of it isn't that Hillary doesn't understand that would be a good place to go. It's that she realizes for her it's quicksand.
Well, and I think that Obama's biggest asset in his original election was he was not a long-term politician that had a long history of, scandal, corruption, things of that nature, where you couldn't pick a candidate that has more skeletons in her closet than Hillary. And, Trump, he's been around in the public eye for a long time, but not really in a political sense. So I think he's getting that same boost that Obama had in his. It's amazing how the tables have sort of turned in this election.
Well, not really, because Obama was presented as an outsider, even though he'd been in the Senate. But Donald Trump really is an outsider, and that is his advantage. He comes out of the world of business where if you don't keep your promises, you do not survive. And that stands in sharp contrast with the world of professional politics, where everybody lies about everything from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed. And the American people are picking up on that. And they may not agree with everything Donald Trump says, but they understand that they're hearing what Donald Trump really thinks, not just something that a focus group said you want to say to this particular group at this particular time.
I think that to that fact, Hillary's comment on the Federal Reserve about no president or no presidential candidate should be commenting at all on the Federal Reserve just shows a dramatic lack of awareness of where the population's view and concern and viewpoint is on certain subjects.
Well, Hillary Clinton is showing her masters that she continues to be their bought and paid for slave. I had another word I was going to put in there, but I don't want to risk the license of our on-air affiliates here. And the reason she went after him is because Donald Trump is saying that Ron Paul was right. It's time for a full, complete audit of the Federal Reserve to find out how much wealth this privately owned central bank has made off the backs of the American people over these last 100 years. And it's going to be a huge, huge number.
And as you say that, it dawns on me that that's who Clinton is really running her campaign for. She's running it for the big money, the Wall Street, the...
Look at how much money they've given her. Yeah, Wall Street's been her biggest supporter. The Federal Reserve, they're just pouring on in. Goldman Sachs is already telling their staff they're not allowed to donate to Trump because it will create the wrong impression, but go ahead and donate to Hillary Clinton all you want. All right, listen, Kyle, got to let you go. Got to take another commercial. Got another person waiting on the phones. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to go right back to the phones. Mo in Florida, aloha. Welcome back to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hello, Michael. How you doing?
Doing okay.
Good, good. I rely on you for honest information. You may not be right, but you're honest, and you're mostly right. My question is this. I have two questions, A and B, if you'll indulge me. First of all, you know, this earpiece that everybody's talking about with Hillary, we know the Capuchin monkey Bush had one with his little backpack, and everybody kind of knew it. Now, my first question is, you know, I don't know what kind of megahertz those things use. I think it's a wide spectrum, but can't those things be hacked? And if that was hacked, that would be the end for Hillary. Can you imagine? So my question to you is, it does look like, I believe she does have an earpiece. You know, they just push her out there like, you know, Weekend at Bernie's, whatever.
Yeah, Weekend at Hillary's.
Yeah, Weekend at Hillary's. And I mean, you're a very technical guy. I mean, you know, what would it take for someone to, I mean, they can do Stuxnet, they can hack anything. How come you couldn't, you know, dial the frequencies and zero in on what they're talking about?
Well, there are a couple of reasons why that might not be easy. And when you remember how much money Hillary Clinton's campaign has, they can afford the very, very best. When I was a kid, you could listen to any radio frequency you wanted to, and a lot of people were into scanners. But actually back in, I think, 1980s, somewhere around there, the U.S. government passed laws that actually made it a crime to listen to certain reserved frequency bands having to do with the military, the Secret Service. So now when you get a scanner, you will see that it is not continuous from 30 megahertz all the way up to, 2.5 gigahertz. Well, you can buy them in other countries. You just can't buy them here in the United States of America. So it could very well be that Hillary's earpiece is from a company that has a license to operate on some of these frequencies that are outside the scanner. It is entirely possible that some form of very basic encryption is being used, or even just compression. And it could, even in theory, be frequency agile, which means it's just jumping all over the place to avoid interception. Obviously, the campaign wants to keep this secret. They're denying that Hillary was using an earpiece, even though WikiLeaks says they have emails showing she's been doing this since 2009.
Well, you know, just the very thought that somebody could be monitoring that earpiece, wouldn't that just shake the, you know, what's left of her, where she's kind of worried about, you know, somebody hacking into it? Wouldn't that just, you know, just the very thought of it? If I was on, you know, I think it would. Well, up
until yesterday, Hillary was convinced nobody even knew it was out there, and they wouldn't be looking for the frequency. But now they got to be thinking about taking steps to prevent interception. As far as I know, it's a one-way device only from her handlers into her ear. So it's not transmitting, and so it can have a very small battery and last a really long time. But these systems are out there. They're used by motion picture crews to deal with actors who haven't learned their lines, to cue people on live TV, Broadway stage, and so forth. These devices are actually very, very common, but it's one of those little technologies the entertainment and media industry hope that you're unaware of because it harms the image of the star that's out there. But they are out there, and I would expect that Hillary's people have bought the very best, the most secure, and what I'm hearing from this story is that for some reason the NYPD knew about this, and it may be because some of the frequencies that her earpiece is using impinge on the New York City police bands, which if they're using a trunked system, that could cause some confusion.
Remember, I got a Part B question, a different subject. But
all right, go for it.
Can you imagine if Trump just, one of the debates said, hey, can I see if you have an earpiece?
Somebody already proposed that after they're out there for the debates, that they go on up and they just shine a little flashlight in the ear and make sure that there are no aids, because the whole point of a debate is to see Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump arguing with each other, not Donald Trump arguing with a room full of Hillary advisors backstage. And of course, Hillary would never go for that. In fact, Hillary is trying to turn all of the presidential debates into this forum format in order to avoid an open exchange with Donald Trump, because she knows Donald would eat her alive in an actual open extemporaneous discussion.
Yeah, they're going to try to trip him up on like they did with that goofball Johnson. I say goofball because I thought it was a goofball from day one. When they asked him where Aleppo was, and he thought it was he didn't know what the heck they were talking about.
Well, Gary did that to himself. That wasn't a setup. In fact, looking at the face of the newscaster who was interviewing him, he was stunned. He was just absolutely not expecting that. That's true.
Okay, part B, and I don't want to stay on the line too long, but I'm not been on enough cruises. I don't go on any cruises anymore, but my wife gets seasick actually. But you get 20, 30 people on a cruise, you go for free, and you can have everything you want. I think it would just be a great idea for you and Claire. You could get 40, 50 people to sign up for a cruise, and I think it'd be awesome.
It would certainly be a romantic idea, but I mean the cost of cruise tickets now is just crazy. We have one domestic cruise line that sails the Hawaiian Islands, and you can, rather than do the whole week-long tour of the islands, you can get on at one island, get off at the other, and Claire and I were looking at as something to possibly do on our upcoming anniversary, but the cost is just, it's staggering.
No. What I'm saying, if you get 20 to 30 people, you go free.
Yeah, but I got to find 20 to 30 people who've got that kind of money, and all the rich people, all the rich people are over supporting Hillary Clinton, and Rivero's Rangers, by and large, tend to be, they're how do I put this delicately? They're economically challenged, and I recognize that. That's why I hate asking for donations. When we get short, and I'm terrible at asking for money. That's why I could never be a politician.
Well, I know a lot of people love your show that I know, and so, gosh, I know 6 or 7 people listen to your show, and that's...
I have that many? I got 7 people. No, seriously.
I don't have that many friends, Michael.
Okay.
All right, well, that was just a suggestion. I think you do it easy.
All
okay.
Right.
Take care. I appreciate you taking my call.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Ralph in New York City. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, how you doing? I have to ask a hypothetical question.
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
What would urban gentrification would be like under a Donald Trump administration?
I think that Donald Trump's top priority, and even Denzel Washington has broken ranks with Hollywood liberals to stand with Trump on this. It's going to be to bring back the jobs, bring back the manufacturing. And I think if people are making decent wages and salaries, they're going to tend to want to fix up their own homes. There doesn't have to be an outside program of gentrification. People want to live in good neighborhoods. And, if they've got the extra money, they're going to get the tools to do their yards and keep the house maintained. When you talk about all these places that are suffering from urban blight, that's an artifact of the poverty these people are living in, because they've got just enough money for the rent, just enough money for the food and clothes, and that's it. They don't have anything left over. I think the vast majority of people want to fix up their homes. They want to live in a pretty place, because that's their public face to the neighborhood. And I think if we get the high-paying jobs back, the gentrification is going to take care of itself.
You got all these developers in the inner cities that want to push minorities out of the inner cities, like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. Want to put big high-rises and condos and waterfront properties, and they want to push certain classes of people out, and it's really basically ethnic cleansing racism. And I think there's going to be uprisings in the inner cities over this. Mayors like
New York. I misunderstood. I misunderstood what you meant by gentrification, and so I gave you an inappropriate answer. Unfortunately, this idea that as wealth becomes concentrated, they have more and more power to displace other people, it's hardly a new situation. Here in Hawaii, it's reached the point where the wealthy people coming over from the mainland are buying up all the properties and the expensive homes, and the people who've lived here for generations can't afford to stay here anymore. We're actually in a negative population growth right now. We're in a decline. More people are leaving Hawaii than are moving here, and still the rents keep going up. And it just doesn't make any sense. Okay, this is a really bad phone connection here. So if you don't mind, I'm going to let you go because I'm having a real hard time understanding you. And we're going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Yeah, I know you're not onto the economy segment yet.
Yes.
Partially, maybe, but I wanted to talk about Hanjin with the 85 ships still sitting out.
Oh man, and what? $14 billion worth of inventory sitting out there.
$15 billion worth of inventory sitting in limbo.
I mean, if some of it's foodstuffs, it's all going to be rotted here. I wonder if the iPhone 7s are sitting on those ships, and that's why Apple won't release the pre-order numbers.
Like, how does that work now with who controls, like, the shipping company was paid already?
Well, the shipping company would have issued a bill. I don't know exactly how they would have done that. But at this point, with Hanjin shut down, Hanjin is in breach of contract to transport these goods from point A to point B in exchange for however much money. So they're going to be sued out of existence. And they're going into bankruptcy anyway, so it almost doesn't matter. The problem is...
Well, somebody's got to get those people off the ships, though. I mean, they should have continued on the voyage to finish what they started.
Oh, they're not just sitting in the middle of the ocean. They're not sitting in the middle of the ocean. They've put into the nearest port, and at that point, they're not allowed to be moved any longer because they're technically under legal seizure by the authorities that are dealing with the bankruptcy. But where this is going to cause a problem is those companies that were selling these exports, they're not going to get their money. They don't know if they got paid up front, okay. If they were going to get paid on the back end, they're in trouble. Certainly all these retail outlets that were importing these goods, they may have paid for them up front, but the real problem is the shelves in the stores are going to start getting really, really empty. Now, here in Hawaii, the vast majority of our shipping is done by the Matson Company. Matson is a ship's captain who bought literally the first cargo ship to service the Hawaiian Islands. It was a gigantic four-masted sailing ship, and basically Matson company has enjoyed a monopoly here in Hawaii. But when they bring stuff that's coming over from the U.S. mainland, from Seattle and San Francisco and Los Angeles, a lot of what they're bringing us is cross-loaded from those Hanjin ships. And so we may be looking at a real serious disruption of the supply chain to our state, to the West Coast, to the western part of Canada. This is a real crink in the system that may accelerate a crash.
And I want to switch gears real quick and talk about what is exactly quantum entanglement radar? Because that's what the Chinese, I believe that satellite that they launched not too long ago, the quantum radar satellite or something, they picks up stealth aircraft. We also know low-band radar picks up stealth aircraft.
Yeah, I have not read up on that satellite. But I do know a lot of the ballyhoo about quantum is very much overstated. They oversold quantum computing. The few existing quantum computers out there are actually performing at the same rates as silicon-based technology. It's just a buzzword that's out there. I know that quantum encryption is proving to be very difficult, actually impossible to eavesdrop on because it changes the quantum state. As far as quantum entanglement radar, I'm going to have to really look at that one. Quantum entanglement was the idea that two separate atoms are entangled at the quantum level so that when one atom is affected, it changes the state of the remote one. Which sounds counterintuitive, but that's actually been demonstrated. There's some very weird experiments in quantum theory that have been done that show there's something else going on out there. And if I had time and money, I'd play with that, but I don't. But I'll look into that radar. I think, my impression on the story I read was the radar itself was more conventional, and they were attempting to use quantum encryption to get the data back down to Earth without it being intercepted.
Yeah, it's way above my pay grade.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike.
Okay, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch to Dave in Florida. Aloha, Dave. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Long time listener. I listened to you since 2008. This is the first time I've ever talked to you. I try to donate as much as possible, but enough kissing your butt. On Hillary's
That's my wife's job.
Yes, if you can get her to do it. Usually it's the other way around. But anyways.
Which is also fun.
Yes. Okay. Anyways, do you remember James Randi?
Oh, yeah.
I remember on Johnny Carson, I remember I was a youngster then. I mean, I must have been probably 12, 13. And that's what really fascinated about these debunking people and all this stuff, and how he actually went in with that one televangelist who's still around doing the same garbage today, and intercepted his receiving I don't know, some coaching from his wife from the back, because he was one of these people that could figure out what was wrong with you. A faith healer, that's the term.
Yeah.
And actually, he was very successful in doing it, and I mean, you can find that clip on YouTube still. And,
I knew James Randi from the Magic Castle, and what James Randi was doing was basically a repeat of what Harry Houdini had done, because following the death of Houdini's mother, he fell victim to all the spirit mediums of the day and spent a fortune trying to connect with his mother in the afterlife, and he finally came to the realization they were all frauds. And so, like the woman scorned, he just launched on them all and almost single-handedly shut the business down. And Randy's doing the same thing. See, for a professional magician, we stand up there and we say, we're going to trick you. We're going to all have fun. We're going to trick you. Randy's issue is with people who are using magic tricks and trying to convince the audience that it's real.
And I think he had $1 million check or something to prove anything of any paranormal or.
Yeah. I gotta let you go. Gotta let you go. Gotta do.
Bye, Mike. I love you, man.
All right. We'll be back after these commercials. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And I think I have this set up a little too high on the volume. There we go. Pardon my breathing heavy. I had to dash outside during the commercial break. Okay, let's take a phone call from Dave in Florida. Aloha, Dave. Welcome to the show. We talked to Dave. Tim in Texas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. How are you doing today? I wanted to talk to you about what is your opinion on how do you think they're going to get rid of the nickel or change it into a token, since the nickel is the last refuge of actual real money we have left to actually save in circulation.
Well, I think the real push is away from actual physical currency and into all electronic. And that's kind of necessary because when this negative interest rate thing really gets going, it's only a matter of time before people realize the smart thing to do is pull their money out of the banks. And we're already seeing that happen in Europe. And here in the United States, we posted an article to the front of WhatReallyHappened.com pointing out that negative interest rates are actually illegal because you're supposed to be...
Oh, well, go on, Mike. I'm sorry.
You're supposed to be paid interest for the use of your money, and therefore negative interest rates, there's no consideration, and it's considered a sham transaction.
So then what is stop? That's what I'm saying, if the nickel's the last refuge of, what I think of real money, what actually is real money, what is people stopping, if they're understanding, if anybody understands negative interest rates beyond currency, what's making them stop? I'm just not going to put it in fiat, I'm going to put it in gold, silver, or just take it and getting, nickels or, just, in the sense of basically, because the way I'm looking at it, in 1920, $20 of nickels would get you a $20 gold piece. So were they wrong to value the $20 worth of nickels the same as that $20 gold piece, or are we wrong? You see what I'm trying to say?
Well, the problem is the value, the relative value of the metals changes over time. And ever since the ending of the gold standard, the value of gold as denominated in U.S. dollars has just gone right through the roof. And they have re-engineered our coinage to try and have it match the decline in value of the dollar. Because prior to 1964, when you were holding a U.S. quarter, you were holding 25 cents worth of silver. The original theory of money in this country was it was the coinage. And the coins, the metal in the coin was the money. The paper certificates that were issued by the government were claim checks for convenience only. And you could walk into any bank with a silver certificate or in the very early days a gold certificate and give them that paper and they would give you the physical metal. Under the Federal Reserve, they basically made the piece of paper the money, and that means they can play all the games they want with it. All right, well, listen.
I wanted to finish one more.
All right, then stay on the line. Stay on the line. We'll bring you back after station identification. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. And once again, the call-in numbers are 512-716-1603, 512-716-1883, and 512-716-1897. We're going to go back to Tim in Texas. You had something else you wanted to say about the nickels. Tim, are you there? Okay, I guess we lost.
Hello?
Tim, are you there?
Okay, sorry, I couldn't get. It wouldn't let me. I was talking. It wouldn't let me get to you.
Okay, well, we can thank Vonage for that one too.
Yes, that point that you made about the silver quarter and saying you would have, the exact real money right there. Why wouldn't it be the same with the $20 with the nickels? Because I was reading where in Venezuela to get a gallon of gas 3 hours being 3 pennies. And then when you look at all around the world, most of the people live off $2 a day, and it's a couple of $100 in their own currency. So isn't, I guess, the same principles still apply? It's just, since in America it's very manipulated and we don't know what's up or down or what heads or tails.
Well, it is very manipulated, and it's really very simple to understand. When this nation was started, okay, those coins were the money, and once that money was in your hand, there wasn't anything the government or the banks could do to change its value. It was yours. It was under your control. And under the pressure and lobbying from the Federal Reserve, we have evolved to a system where what you're holding in your hand, whether it's a slug coin, a token, or a piece of paper with colored ink, its value is not under your control anymore. It's under the control of the bankers who will do whatever is in their best interest to do. And right now, of course, as they create more and more money out of thin air to keep the stock market propped up, looking good for the elections, the value of the money already in your possession, in your wallet, in your cookie jar, it's shrinking. It's not under your control. And that freedom to be in charge of the wealth that you worked and produced was one of the initial freedoms of the United States. It wasn't enumerated in the Bill of Rights. It should have been. But what they did put in the Constitution was the metal base was the money, and only Congress had the authority to coin and issue money. And they were not allowed to delegate it to a privately owned central bank. But, of course, they did, because Congress are politicians, and politicians will sell their own mother for $1.
Well, I appreciate the information, Mike. Thank you very much for answering my question.
All right.
Have a good one, okay?
I certainly will. And let's switch over to Ken in Georgia. Aloha, Ken. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Hey, Mike. Mike?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Mike. Ken in Georgia, the guy from Quincy, 1 in 52. I was calling up today. I wanted to just say, when I was a kid growing up, when I wasn't watching Uncle Gus, I'd be out sometimes playing doctor. And, I've been thinking about Hillary, and I figured out why she's coughing so much. I think she's got what you'd call a mutation of Ebola.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Let's face it, God only knows what kind of filthy thing she's been sticking in her mouth, and she could have gotten it,
Well, I mean, the symptomology for Ebola is pretty clear. I think a lot of people are concerned that her coughing is actually a side effect of some of the medications that she is on to deal with possibly Parkinson's or her concussion and the other brain injuries. We know that she was researching drugs on Parkinson. She's taking warfarin, and these kind of medications can dehydrate you terribly. And that could result in the coughing issue. I mean, if it was only the coughing and there was nothing else, I wouldn't care. Okay, because a president who coughs, as long as the brain is working, that's fine. The issue, though, is with so much obvious secrecy about Hillary Clinton's health, it's a legitimate question to ask. Is she really mentally capable of fulfilling the office of president? And they're in a panic mode because, like I said earlier, my email box is being flooded with all these emails from obvious Hillary Clinton operatives saying, no, it's Donald Trump who's showing symptoms of mental illness. You should focus on that. We have over at Huffington Post, a story about how we've got an expert who says he's absolutely psychotic. And no, not to me. I've known enough psychotic people. I used to work in Hollywood. Donald Trump, he's an egomaniac. I will grant you that. Okay? But a person who makes that kind of money has a right to a little bit of self-aggrandizement. But, Hillary, there's definitely an issue there. And we, the people, have a right to know about it before she gets the keys to the nuclear weapons.
Yeah. Hey, if you can get this out to Donald Trump, this is what I think he needs to do. He needs to go out and get himself a mascot. And the mascot is going to be a little dog, and he's going to name that dog Toto. Because, man, as we start approaching these next 60 days and counting, Hillary is literally, and when I say Hillary, whatever happened to baby Jane Hillary, she reminds me of that witch from the Land of Oz. And she is slowly melting, man. Over the next 60 days, you're going to see her literally going, I'm melting, because she is, man.
Yeah,
I wish Donald Trump could get some shoes, that ruby red slippers, too. Maybe he needs to get a pair of them, and he'll pull back the curtain on this.
Well, Hillary is self-destructing, and I'm smelling panic coming out of Hillary's campaign. This desperate claim that everybody who's opposed to Hillary is a Russian agent, and literally implied threats and actual carried out threats to anybody who's talking about her health issue. I mean, people are losing their jobs over this. And it's fully on display. And like I said, we have this coffee mug over in our online store that says the fastest way to bring down a dictatorship is to force it to act like one where everybody can see it. And that's what we're doing here. All right, we're going to take a moment here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining our network at this time. We're obviously continuing to talk about politics. We're taking phone calls. And again, for those of you with the affiliates, our toll-free number is still, alas, not working. Vonage hath ruined us. And the numbers to reach us on the air, 512-716-1603, 512-716-1883, 512-716-1897. You get a recording, means somebody else is on the line. Try a different number, or wait a minute and call back in. Okay, David, anything else? I'm sorry, am I talking? No, I'm not talking to David.
Ken.
Yeah, Ken. Okay. I have a little tiny screen that carries my messages from the control room, and things scroll off the top, and I lose track of who I'm talking to. Sometimes
I do that all the time.
Well, I used to love when I was working where we had the Comrex stack. That was a really nice system to handle phone calls with. And it gave me my own drop button, which I would use with reckless abandon. All right, well, we're going to let you go now and switch over to...
one last thing quick, Mike?
Real quick.
Okay, this thing about Trump and the Russians and all this and them hacking and all this, I'm really afraid of? They could turn around this DNC people, and they could make the election go where Trump gets 98, 99% of the vote and say, see, the Russians hacked it, and he cheated, and call the election off that way.
There's a lot of people who are thinking that they may be setting the stage to do that, because this narcocracy, this bunch of drug criminals who bought the U.S. government for themselves, they're not going to let a little thing like the voters take away all the candy.
Hey, Mike. Keep up the fire, man.
just as long as I can. All right, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to David in Oklahoma. Aloha, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha to you too, Mike, and I want to thank you very much for taking my call. And I found out about you after losing my job, and I had a bunch of time on my hands, and stumbled across your radio show, and I consider it a gift for losing my job, and for that, I don't know how thankful I could be.
I hate to say this. I disagree with you. I would have preferred it if you'd kept your job.
Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. I really appreciate your intelligence, and I want to ask you and challenge your listeners to pull out the board game Monopoly and look at the color of the currency and see that it matches the U.S. currency exactly. The 5 is a pink, the 10 is a yellow, the 20 is a green, the $50 bill, it's got some blue in it, and 100 is gold. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I did, and it proves the Federal Reserve does have a sense of humor.
Well, I just, the truth is what's important here, and it might be one of those conditioning things that I think we're just being conditioned that this funny money is, well, anyway, I'll let you speak to it, but again, I thank you for taking my call, and I'll let you talk, Mike.
All right, well, thanks an awful lot, David. With regard to the actual physical currency itself, the love affair with our green currency really did go on much longer than it needed to, and it wasn't keeping up with modern times. Having different colored currency makes a lot of sense for people who are visually challenged. One of the best currencies I've seen in the world was down in Australia, where they stopped using paper entirely, and their notes are printed on polymer. And it's very clear color, and there are little coated windows that are left clear. And this allows bill changers to operate much more accurately. And the coated windows are set up in a way where if you try and tamper with them, it lowers the value of the note as seen by the reader. The edge of the notes are also notched with a pattern so that people with no sight at all have no difficulty telling one note from the other. Very intelligent design, a currency that's designed to be helpful to the people, as opposed to the U.S. currency, which has, as you see in the movie National Treasure, it's basically a self-aggrandizement testimonial to the greatness of our financial power brokers, and it is a little bit out of date. I'll tell you the most beautiful currency, and unfortunately Canada doesn't use it anymore, but when I was a kid, my grandmother lived in Canada, and for my birthday she would send me $1, $2, and $5 bills from Canada. And the reverse on them was this most amazing engraved picture of someplace in Canada. And they were so beautiful I refused to spend them. And years later, it took her by surprise that I had kept every single one of them. But it was just an amazing engraving job. Engraving for money or coinage can be an art form. Unfortunately, these days, U.S. money looks like gas station game tokens. If you ever get to Munich, in the Residence Museum, I hope it's still there, there's a permanent display on coinage art about how beautiful coins can be when they're being struck by somebody who actually cares about that. Anything else, David?
One last question. How come we have U.S. presidents on our notes and not Federal Reserve chairman?
Because the Federal Reserve is not part of the U.S. government.
I want you to believe that they are.
Yeah, of course. That's why they chose the name Federal Reserve. It was supposed to be the third bank of the United States. But the reality is the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express.
Well, I appreciate your honesty and candor and intelligence, Mike. And I speak to the audience when we say thank you very much. And thank you very much, Mike.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Mary in New Jersey. Aloha. Mary, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I wanted to make kind of an endorsement of Trump, and I wanted to say something about Hillary. So first thing about Trump, not that I know him, but when I live in New Jersey, close to, 3.5 miles from Newark Airport, and I've worked in a lot of New Jersey hospitals and in New York, and also, when he first said he was running, I looked up, he grew up in Queens, had 5 kids in his family. He was not a spoiled brat. when he was young, he had to work in construction, and so his father didn't give him everything. When he was about 12, I think, he became a little bit hard to handle, probably strong-minded, and they put him in a military school. And then he tried to go into the military to sign up for service, but he did break his ankle or his foot, and they refused him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also, one other thing is that working in hospitals years ago, so nurses used to say to me, one nurse used to ask me all the time, want to go to a seminar to make money, money-making seminar? And she was raving about how great Trump was. He would come to the tables. He would talk to everybody. He would buy them lunch. And another thing, I heard that same thing about all his construction workers. So he's a nice guy, basically.
He has a very good reputation with the people who know him, yes. I'm not one of those, I've yet to actually hear from anybody in the Trump campaign. I mean, trying to extend an invitation for them to come on the show or put a PayPal link on the campaign donations because they get a lot more donations that way.
Maybe I'll try to mention it to somebody. But anyhow, regarding Hillary,
yes,
I was thinking today. I don't think whoever, the people who got her in power, the globalists, I mean, they just want her to survive long enough to get in power. I don't think they care if she dies afterwards because they have other people to back her up. They're controlling it. That's one thing. That's one point. And the vice president, whoever else, what's that, congressperson that's, Melissa something, Wasserman Schultz.
Debbie Wasserman
like
Schultz.
That. Yeah, whoever controls her, they're controlling her. And George Soros. And I just wanted to say how they brought Hitler to power, and I remember seeing these documents. They started the communism in Russia because they killed all of that family. It was like, and also they brought that revolution, that bloody revolution to France. So they are in control of all of this, And one other thing, besides the earpiece, I listened to Alex Jones today. So besides the earpiece, one of the reporters put together a little video, I guess a close-up of when she was on stage, and she was drinking a whole glass of water. Now I don't know if this was the latest or maybe a little while ago, a month ago, but she drank how she has the coughing fit, so they gave her a whole glass of water, and she was drinking it on down. And as she was drinking it, there was this green goo slipping into the water. It was bizarre because
I looked at that, and I think it's just an artifact of the refraction of the water. It's not moving in a believable fashion when you consider the density of the water. I think it's an optical illusion. So I would just throw that one out.
I never saw anything like that. But anyhow, when you have a dry cough like that, I've been a nurse in ICU and education for a long time. I'm in my 60s, and you have to cough. You get a congested cough. You get a lot of, you hear it. And I didn't see it at first, but then I saw it, and it kind of slides down into there. It's hard for me to say that that's an optical illusion.
Yeah, it doesn't look right to me. It just doesn't look right to me. I think it was just something refracting through from the back here, because it's, for one thing, it's moving way too fast. Okay. So I'm not paying attention to that. But the issue is, if Hillary's on medication that is seriously drying her out, that would account for the cough and the constant needing to drink water.
I know.
Apparently, in the press conference on the airplane, she had a glass of water, and apparently was done with that and still grabbed another bottle of water to drink. So,
Well, I know
okay.
medication can really
yeah,
you out.
they can mess you. Plus, she's on that aircraft at 35,000 feet, and that's going to dehydrate you.
But when she had that, I never called in at that time. I know now because you said your girlfriend, one old girlfriend, used to have seizures. And I'm thinking there's other types of seizures.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, I know you mentioned them later. And
well, my former girlfriend had petit mal seizures where she just simply freeze.
Yeah, but you can do it where, you know, you're not passing out completely. You could blank out without falling down.
Yeah, that's what my former girlfriend had. And
another thing is that it could be Tourette's syndrome, where you have these spasms and uncontrollable. And
no, it's not Tourette's, or there would be some there would be some embarrassments in the language if it was Tourette's syndrome. Anyway, listen, Mary, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And unlike Hillary Clinton, I'm willing to tell you, yes, I'm coughing a lot because I have a nasty summer cold, and dealing with that. But I'm a little better today than I was yesterday, so I figure by this time next week I'll be over it. But then I'm not running for president anyway. I should have. I mean, when you look at the candidates the Democrats put forward and the Libertarians, I mean, Gary Johnson just flatlined his campaign. I mean, not that a third-party candidate has a chance anyway. But he's got a nice interview on the corporate media, and the interviewer asks him, what's your opinion on Aleppo? And Gary Johnson goes, what's Aleppo? And the interviewer, just the look on his face, you're kidding me, right? So I wonder if it's too late to restart my Rivero 2016 campaign, at least for the write-in vote, running under the slogan, he could hardly do any worse. And looking at Gary Johnson, I'm much more presidential than he is. All righty, getting on back to the real candidates. Trump's numbers in Indiana are starting to show significant shifts. The Franklin Pierce University Boston Herald poll out today. 36% of Hispanic voters in Indiana are going to vote for Donald Trump. 19% of black voters are going to back Donald Trump. The black and Hispanics, along with the women and the LGBT, were considered Hillary Clinton's core constituency, the foundation on which she was going to build her campaign, and they're starting to desert her. The leaders of Black Lives Matter just came right on out and said, she's saying all the things that we want to hear. We have no way of knowing she'll ever keep her word on any of it. That's where that trustworthiness issue comes back. She's completely untrustworthy. Every day we find out she lied again. And the corporate media acts like it's a big surprise. Oh my goodness, they caught Hillary Clinton lying. Go back over the last 22 years and find something that Hillary Clinton didn't lie about. That would be newsworthy. Down in Florida, Trump is at 55, Hillary at 45, 10-point spread. They're out there cherry-picking the people they're talking to try and generate numbers favorable to Hillary. They're coming up short. Florida poll also showed 1 in every 6 Democrats will vote for Donald Trump. The Trumpocrats. Bill Clinton is still out there saying that Donald Trump's slogan, Make America Great Again, it's racist. It's racist to say about making America great again. When I was a kid, we were taught to take pride in America being great. And it doesn't really matter anyway. Bill Clinton's once again proving what a hypocrite he is because he himself used that slogan in 1991, 1992, and in 2008 when he was supporting Hillary's first run for the White House. We've seen the attack on the Confederate flag. Oh, it's racist, it's evil. And yet if you go back, and by the way, I have a huge political pin collection. I'm probably going to ship it all to the Smithsonian. It goes back to Teddy Roosevelt. And presidents throughout history have had pins for campaigning in the South with the flag of the Confederacy on them. So does Hillary. So did Al Gore. They make this stuff up out of thin air to create a controversy where none existed, and then they campaign on the controversy. The color pink offends the LGBTQRVUM community. And if you elect me president, I will ban pink. That's how they do it. They make up a controversy. And they do it for a simple reason. They don't want to talk about the things that are really affecting your life, the economy, the wars, out of control corruption, because they have nothing they can talk about that makes them look good. So we're going to talk about gay rights and abortion and all the rest of this stuff. Every 4 years, it's the same ritual that we see. I love this story. Over in Cormorant, Minnesota, a dog, a Great Pyrenees named Duke, has been elected mayor of the town for his third term. Apparently, he won his first election as a joke, and the townspeople like him so much they've re-elected him twice. Good. The cats are claiming the election was rigged, however. We'll be right back after this commercial. Hello, hi, America. Welcome back to the show. And no, do not call the toll-free number. It is not working. How wonderful it is to live in a fascist economic dictatorship with third world quality services available to us at high cost. So use the 516 numbers. Now, there's a doctor who has started making videos, and we've had them on the front page of WhatReallyHappened.com, where his diagnosis of Hillary Clinton is that she has Parkinson's disease. And I'm not reporting this so that you should feel sorry for her, although maybe a little. It's a nasty, nasty, nasty disease. And I'm getting all these emails sent to me by people who appear to be in the know, talking about, yes, the medications given for Parkinson's disease can dehydrate the people, and hydration has to be maintained properly or more serious things can happen. Here is the real concern. If Hillary's cough was from chronic bronchitis or because she smoked, who cares? As I said before, the fact that Franklin Roosevelt was in a wheelchair for polio did not impact his ability to make decisions. John F. Kennedy's back injury and his other medical illnesses did not affect his ability to make decisions. I do think it was dishonest for the government to hide Reagan's Alzheimer's during his second term and let George Herbert Walker Bush run things from the background. But in this case, we're talking about before the general election, and there's a legitimate concern over Hillary's behavior. And this doctor has looked at her video clips and her very strange behaviors, and he compares them to the behaviors of known Parkinson's patients, like Michael Keaton. And there are parallels. Parkinson's disease leads to dementia, the inability to make good decisions. It can eventually lead to Alzheimer's outright. The medications used to treat Parkinson's are even more dangerous. They can cause confusion, dizziness, faintness, lightheadedness, falling asleep in the middle of the day, mood or mental changes. And here's the one that is really dangerous for somebody holding the keys to the nuclear weapons: seeing, hearing, or feeling things that are not really there. So this is a legitimate area. And when we look at the behavior of the Hillary Clinton campaign and how the corporate media is destroying the career of anybody who even asks a question, it's obvious something is being hidden. Now, we've already talked about Gary Johnson's gaffe with Aleppo. Now he's trying to use the Hillary defense. He just had a blank moment to hit a brain short circuit. I think that at this case, he's kind of toast. But Paul Joseph Watson, even before Aleppo happened, Paul Joseph Watson really went after Gary Johnson and said he's a total fraud and he's a complete idiot. And he was saying that the media has focused so much on Trump's idiosyncrasies. Johnson got a free pass mostly because the corporate media just is opposed to covering any third-party candidates at all unless they absolutely have to. Now, they're going to have to give Jill Stein a little bit of coverage because she just had an arrest warrant issued for her Now, before you jump up and say, oh, it's a political hack job, no, it isn't. Jill Stein is up there with the protests for over the Dakota pipeline. And apparently she spray painted one of the construction company's trucks, which is technically an act of vandalism, and they've issued an arrest warrant for her. And I think that's one of the kinds of arrests that people can feel proud about, when they know that they may be breaking a minor law, but they're standing on the moral right side. And a lot of people are going up to this Dakota protest. They're bringing attention to it, and they should. It's another classic case of a corporation just rolling over people, destroying their cultural heritage, all in the name of a fast buck. And the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has confirmed this company doesn't have the required paperwork to be doing what they're doing. The company filed an application for an easement to allow the pipeline to go through, but the easement is still under consideration, and they're just plowing on ahead. Leonardo DiCaprio is up there, bringing as much media attention as he can. Margot Kidder, who you'll remember as Lois Lane from the Superman movies, she's quite an activist in her own right right now, and we're going to have her on the show very, very soon. She's heading up there right now. And unfortunately, they've also called in the National Guard. So things are getting really, really tense. But at some point, we have to get away from this idea that what corporations want is the top priority of the government, and what ordinary people want, it just isn't a factor anymore. The only way we're going to have a government that serves the people is for the people to be the government. This country was kind of set up on that idea. Now, the Founding Fathers couldn't do a direct participatory democracy because the technology to do it didn't exist. They accepted the need for legislative bodies as a necessary evil, knowing it opened the door to corrupting influences, because there wasn't a way to go on out and involve the general population in these decisions that change their lives. Today, it's different. We can have a direct participatory democracy. And I think in the future, when we talk about the blueprint for the new America, government should be limited to the role of basically being the nation's janitor. Take the trash out, keep the roads repaired, keep the bridges solid, keep the infrastructure working. Large decisions that affect the nation, such as bailouts for Wall Street or going to war, can and should be put to a direct vote of the population as a whole. And we will not see anywhere near as many wars, and we will not see our wealth plundered to cover up the crimes of the Wall Street bankers. I think it's an idea whose time has come. So good for Jill. That's the kind of an arrest warrant you can point to with pride, have it framed on the wall. Now, getting onto the war zones, and I realize I'm way behind on the talking points here, ISIS has now withdrawn from their headquarters in Aleppo's Al-Bab city. Gary Johnson, you're paying attention? You want to know what Aleppo is? We're talking about it right now here. They basically evacuated their headquarters. They left behind the Al-Hisba police department, the jihadi training camps, and weapons storage centers. And I'll bet you they're going to find all kinds of U.S.-provided weapons when they open those things up here. All right, we're going to go ahead and grab a phone call. Steve in California, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Michael, you had the wrong Michael. You said Michael Keaton with Parkinson's. You probably meant Michael J. Fox?
Yeah, Michael J. Fox. That was it, yes.
That's all right. Hey, you know, my medical background, 23 years in ICU, I looked at her and I watched these videos, and the coughing spells, I'm kind of wondering, in her activity intolerance and her inability to kind of do anything exertional, I'm wondering if she's got pulmonary hypertension. You know, if she's taken any of that stuff in the past, years and years ago when that whole thing Fastin and Pondem was on the market for weight control and losing weight and stuff like that. You know, a lot of people end up coming down with what they call pulmonary hypertension, which is right-sided heart failure. And that's actually a backup in the pulmonary. And so, you know, she's getting fluid in her lungs and it tickles and it makes her want to cough. I wonder if she has pulmonary hypertension. Maybe some pulmonary edema going on.
That's not something that would impair her ability to make decisions.
No, that would not.
Okay, well, then I'm not that concerned about it. But looking at the side effects of the medications that are given for Parkinson's, causing unsteadiness. And then we see where she's being helped up the stairs. There was that one picture of her addressing a crowd outside, and she's literally got people on either side of her holding her up, holding her steady. Yeah, there's definitely
She's clearly
an
got
issue.
some equilibrium problems.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And there's something neurologically wrong, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I would.
That's it. Just want to correct you on the Michael. Michael.
Yeah, when I said it, I was struggling and trying to say, I know it's a Michael, but no, it was Michael J. Fox. And,
right.
When he first came out and said he had Parkinson's, I was kind of wondering if, he'd been the champion of diet soft drinks. And we know that aspartame can actually trigger symptoms that seem Parkinsonian. And that maybe if he just quit the aspartame that he might get better, but sadly that did not happen. Yeah. Okay, Steve, thank you very much for the update and the correction. We're going to let you go here. Now, Ash Carter is still running around trying to make all this, Russia bad, Russia's doing this, Russia's doing that, and he's now revised his language to something that is actually a little bit more accurate. He was out there saying that, Russia's sowing the seeds of global instability. And now he basically came on out and said that Russia is eroding the international order. That's actually closer to the truth, because Russia is standing in the way of the U.S.-dominated global economic order centered on that dollar. Russia's not going along. So Carter's actually given this away, what this is really all about. Russia won't get out of the way and let the U.S. regime change countries, impose the petrodollar deal, impose the dollar and the rest of it. That's really what this is all about. Article coming out of Global Research up in Canada. China challenging U.S. dollar hegemony, seeks new global financial order. That's what these wars are really all about. They're risking the incineration of the surface of planet Earth and the death, literally, of billions of human beings in this argument over whose brand of ink and paper we're all supposed to use for the next century. We're going to take a phone call from James in Tokyo. Ohio gozaimasu. What's on your mind today?
Michael, I'm a last-time caller, and I'm sick and tired of you insulting Japan. A lot of times when you say if it came down to Hillary and Godzilla, you'd go for the lizard. And I don't think that it's proper for you to compare our national mascot to that monster.
Well, I'm obviously favoring your national mascot over Hillary Clinton. I think you should take some pride in that. Start a campaign, Godzilla for president.
I mean, our monster doesn't suicide people in the park, threaten Russia with war. Our monster doesn't spew up green stuff. Our monster breathes fire. And if this continues, Michael, I'm going to file a civil suit against you, against defamation against Godzilla. I've already had my 2 kids, my ex-wife, and Ryan Dawson, would you believe? And this just can't continue anymore. Because what you don't realize is that lizard lives matter.
Well, I'll tell you what. If tell Godzilla to come on over here and knock on my door, and I will offer a personal and deep apology.
Thank you, Michael. That's all I had to say today.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. Bye-bye. We're going to let you go there. All right. I have to find another monster to say. I would rather vote for the Yeti than Hillary Clinton. And now I'm going to have everybody in Nepal on my case, I guess. China is keeping their control over the South China Sea with patrols from Sancha outpost driving off hundreds of foreign ships. Now, most of these ships are fishing boats that have been told by their respective governments, go on in and fish in what China claims are their territorial waters. The islands themselves really aren't worth all that much. There isn't that much there. What's at stake here is the fishing grounds. Because, frankly, after Fukushima and the Gulf oil disaster and the GMO disaster, there is not enough safe, healthy food for the human population. And so everybody is starting to line up and say, well, we're claiming this source of healthy food, and we're not going to let you come on in and take it. And that's a big part of what's going on there, along, of course, with the U.S. agenda to destroy the yuan as a threat to the U.S. dollar. Obama is out there warning China must give up its claim to the whole of the South China Sea. In other words, Obama just admitted China does have a claim. Whether it's the Cairo Convention or documents that go back way earlier than that, that's why it's called the South China Sea. And Obama is simply telling China, okay, it may have been yours up to now, but you have to let it go. We're going to take your fishing grounds away from you and give them to our friends in Japan and the Philippines. So, a lot of chest thumping going on in his last few months in office here. All right, let's talk a little bit about 9/11, and I have to do kudos to Richard Gage and architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, because they just put up a billboard in New York City right across from the offices of the New York Times. It's a 3-story tall placard, and it shows one of the collapses of the World Trade Towers. And it says right out, ask the 118 Fire Department of New York members who spoke of explosions. In the oral histories, the New York Times sued the city of New York to obtain. And then they include a quote by the New York Fire Department fire marshal. Everybody, I think, thought these things were blown up. Now, as we reported earlier in the week, the European Physics Society, in their journal, came out with a study saying that the evidence is overwhelming. The 3 buildings that collapsed in New York on 9/11 were brought down as the result of controlled demolition. And again, going back to the Naudet brothers documentary, 9/11, which, by the way, they didn't set out to make a documentary about 9/11. If you haven't seen it, this is a really wonderful video. And the Naudet brothers were actually doing a documentary about the process by which somebody becomes a firefighter. And they had gone to the Fire Department Academy, and they had picked this one student who was about to go into what's called the probation period. And the firefighter was on probation at the fire station just blocks from the World Trade Towers. And they were just making this thing about, living in the fire station and cooking and getting along with everybody. And then all of a sudden, 9/11 happened literally right in front of them. And they made this documentary. And in this documentary, you can hear the firefighters say, this looks like a controlled demolition. Boom, 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 boom. Experts in controlled demolition who look at the video of World Trade Center building number 7 always say it's a controlled demolition. In the unedited raw video, you can hear the explosions. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And a couple more things about 9/11. As you know, Sunday is the 15th anniversary, and we're going to be spending a lot more time on that topic because at this point, the overwhelming majority of Americans know that the government has lied about 9/11, that something else was going on all the time. And the whole thing was a setup. And one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that it was all planned and scripted ahead of time was provided by the BBC, which reported on the collapse of World Trade Center building number 7 more than 20 minutes before it actually happened. And they had a reporter up in a building in New York looking out over the World Trade Center, reporting on the collapse of World Trade Center building number 7, and it's still standing behind her. Fox News made the same report, so did CNN. But the BBC video makes it really obvious this happened. They reported on the collapse of building number 7 more than 20 minutes before it actually happened. Now remember, at that point, no steel frame building had ever collapsed from fire, and none have since. So they couldn't guess it was going to come down, and they reported it as having already collapsed. Now, the BBC has never officially had an explanation for that. They just do one of these things and say, have you seen our latest episode of Top Gear? To which I would reply, no, it's not the show that it used to be. Now, researchers went to BBC and said, we'd like to see the original, unedited videos from that reporter in New York reporting on the collapse of Building Number 7 with it standing behind her. And the BBC said, well, we just threw all that stuff away. Now, anybody who's ever worked in TV news understands you never, ever throw away the original raw footage of an historic event, because that's basically a giant piggy bank. You will make money off of that video, licensing it over and over and over again for documentaries and who knows what all else. Those raw tapes are golden, and all corporate media networks have these huge tape archives of this material. They never let it go. So the only reason for the BBC to throw it away was to get rid of the evidence trail that whoever was supposed to punch that button on Building Number 7 missed the cue and didn't bring it down until after it had been reported that it came on down. All right, let's grab a quick phone call. Clint in Nevada, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm going to make this one quick. I know you're coming on to break. Okay, it's on the front drudge right now. 71% of doctors say Hillary's health concerns are serious and could be disqualifying. And this is from a informal survey taken. 70% of the doctors polled at the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, and it's done today.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now here, and I'm going to post a link to the original article from PR Newswire. So thank you very much for the heads up. We got to take a break for station identification. We'll be back with hour number 3 after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Hour number 3. The phone lines are open, and once again, the toll-free number is not available. And the number to reach the show is 512-716-1603, 512-716-1883, and 512-716-1897. And the nasty people are apparently back. And let me take a quick look at this, because they are really pounding on my server. And all they're really accomplishing is telegraphing how afraid they are of the truth getting out. So, let's just do that right now. And, okay. I have to do a couple of things here to get everything running. Okay, and there we are. Alrighty, so everything is back to battery, hunky-dory. We were talking about 9/11. We're talking about how the BBC literally reported, and Fox and CNN, but BBC got caught red-handed because the video is out there. And I'm going to be reposting that to the main page of my website here very, very soon. Now, following on with the phone call that Godzilla's representatives are going to sue me in court for apparently they perceive my preferring to vote for Godzilla over Hillary Clinton as some form of libelous statement. There's a New York Muslim group has called on New York City to remove the phrase Islamic terrorists from the 9/11 memorial. And I think there is some justification for this, because we know Muslims were being framed for all that was going on back then. Not just 9/11 itself, but the anthrax scare turned out to be a frame-up job. Remember, the head of the FBI admitted that the named suspects in 9/11 were based entirely on these magic flame and explosion-proof passports that were found littered all over the place, or conveniently left in luggage that was never put onto the airplane in the first place. And he was forced to admit, no, the FBI did not in fact know who, if anyone, was on those planes, or even if they were remotely controlled. Now, you remember that ridiculous lawsuit against Iran that was a desperate attempt to hang on to Iran's money in this country? And they basically came on out and said, well, we just know that Iran is behind terror, so victims of terrorist attacks can sue Iran and seize the money without needing to prove that Iran had anything to do with that. Well, apparently this week in the U.S. House of Representatives, there is a bill that will allow victims of 9/11 to sue Saudi Arabia. Now, this is apparently part of that campaign to redirect attention for 9/11 away from the U.S. government and away from Israel to yet another potential target for invasion. First it was Afghanistan, went in, bombed and ruined the place. Oh, we're sorry, it was actually Iraq was behind 9/11. Go in and bomb and ruin the place. Oh, we're sorry about that. Now it's Saudi Arabia. But Saudi Arabia did not have a motive to do 9/11. They make a huge amount of money off the petrodollar deal. They have billions in investments in the United States. They don't want to give the U.S. government an excuse to seize that money. Looks like the government's going to go ahead and seize it anyway without an excuse. And if Saudi Arabia wanted to hurt the United States of America, all they need to do is ask for all their money back. And the destruction to our economy would make 9/11 itself look like a speed bump. Saudi Arabia doesn't need to crash airplanes into skyscrapers. Now, the Saudis who were claimed to be part of the hijackers, again, the head of the FBI admitted that they didn't really know who was on the airplanes because they were relying on these magic bomb and explosion and fireproof passports. They didn't really know. The head of the FBI admitted the IDs they were using to name these people were fakes, high-quality fakes from a nation state that has these kind of capabilities. So this bill is completely absurd. It's just a cash grab. We're going to grab money from Saudi Arabia. Oh, we're sorry, Saudi Arabia didn't do 9/11. It was Liechtenstein. We're going to sue Liechtenstein now and invade them for 9/11. Oh, we're wrong about that, too. Australia did 9/11. We've got to go make war on Australia. On and on and on. We ran a poll at WhatReallyHappened.com. Do you believe the government's story about 9/11? And the results came in. No got 99%. Yes got 1%. They didn't actually get 1%. The polling software rounds off to the nearest integer. Basically, no, I don't believe the government story got 727 votes. Yes got 5 votes. All right, we're going to take a moment here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. We're talking about 9/11, which the anniversary is coming up on this Sunday. And we're basically looking at all the evidence that it was a false flag attack. It was as phony as the Lusitania not having weapons, or Pearl Harbor being a surprise, or torpedoes in the Gulf of Tonkin, or a Spanish mine in Havana Harbor. This is how the U.S. government launches war. They fake some kind of an incident. And the U.S. is not alone with that. Hitler did the same thing at Gleiwitz to launch the war against Poland. Up at the top of WhatReallyHappened.com in the permanent menu, we have a link to an article about 42 false flag attacks that are officially admitted to, where the governments who did this have actually said, yeah, we actually did do that. Weren't we clever? We just snookered everybody out there. And that's just the 42 that are admitted to. How many hundreds of other incidents are not what history books and the media tell you they are in order to seek some political or military gain? Paul Craig Roberts is out with an article saying the tide is turning. The official story of 9/11 is now the conspiracy theory. The majority of Americans don't believe the official story. We showed that with our poll. We all know the government lied. We don't need to get tangled up in minute details, and we need to avoid getting suckered into discussions about obvious poison the well planted stories to try and keep the confusion going, to delay the formation of a public consensus. Whether it's directed energy weapons or UFOs or micro nukes or no plane at the Pentagon. And no, I will not be taking any phone calls on that topic. All of these are there to try and keep the confusion and chaos going. But it's too late. The American people have formed a consensus. The U.S. government lied to us about 9/11. The fine details do not matter. Now we need to know what we need to decide. What are we going to do about it? Do you want your children to grow up under a government that lies to them to get their money and their obedience and lies to them to send them off to wars? What responsible parent would be comfortable with that idea? That's what I want to know. Now, we've been poking fun at the Nobel Peace Prize, and what a joke it has become. Alfred Nobel originally set this up to actually honor and award people who promoted peace. And over the years, it's become a political prize. The world leaders want it as an office decoration. And Henry Kissinger got one. And we know what a warmonger he was. Barack Obama got one before he'd even done anything, and he's become one of the most warmongering presidents we've ever had. Al Gore shared one over his human-caused global warming hoax. And now, the White Helmets, the notorious mop-up wing of Nusra, has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. They've made this whole thing a joke. They've made it completely irrelevant and meaningless. I can't imagine anybody with an ounce of integrity ever accepting one. It's just a joke, and it's part of a larger process. This awarding of shiny things to wear on your vest or hang on the wall is part of the brainwashing to get you to pay attention to those who are telling you what the government wants you to believe. You need to listen to this person. Look, he's got plaques, and he's got honors and awards, and he's got all this stuff. He's all over the wall. You should listen to that person because he's just been given all of these wall decorations here. And don't listen to those other people over there, no matter how much sense they're making, because they don't have the plaques. They don't have statues. So you don't want to pay attention to them. That's part of it. It's part of the fraud, the deception, to make the people who are the deceivers look socially superior. And then we find out, of course, that they really aren't. Now, getting into the economic news here a little bit, there was this video, and it was produced by a European travel concern, and it was sort of tongue-in-cheek. But the idea of the video is if you're thinking about relocating to the United States, be very careful where you're going to go. And then it proceeds to lay out 12 of the worst places to live in the United States. And it is a very telling video. You need to watch that. And you need to watch it especially if you gave any credence whatsoever to Obama's claims of a booming economy and the fixed highest ever stock market. See, they're using that stock market as a banner. They run it up through rigging, and then they wave it and say, see, the economy is doing great. The only thing booming in our economy are the war industries, and they're actually not doing very well either, because for all the money that goes into them, they're producing junk. They're having to do a re-engineering, rethink on the Gerald R. Ford. All of the littoral combat ships have been recalled to port and dry dock because of all their problems. The F-35 is not going to be fully operational until at least 2019. That's when they're expecting the software for the cannon to finally be delivered. Yet by imperial edict, it's been declared ready for service, and they're going to fly it on out there and see what breaks so that they know what to fix, which is going to be kind of rough on those pilots who don't come home. But the Pentagon is now starting to work like Microsoft. We're going to put it out. We know it's junk. We'll let the end users find out what's wrong with it, and then maybe we'll get around to fixing it. The Internal Revenue Service is now warning people to stay away from IRA funds that involve gold stored in your home. Now, they don't really have anything that they can say is illegal about it. They're just opposed to the idea of you having gold in your home, because they need that gold to save the New York Fed, and they want it piled up in one place where they can grab it and not have to go door to door to door, especially with the population. that is ready to defend their gold with their firearms. Now, we had a call into the show in the first hour that raised a very interesting point. Right now, these Hanjin ships, Hanjin Shipping went into bankruptcy. Their ships are basically being held in port to find out who's really the owner of them now. Legal claims are being made against them. And on board those ships right now is $14 billion of cargo that was frozen in transit. For any of that cargo that represents foodstuffs, it's probably going to spoil and be utterly worthless. But there could be other things on there as well. And that means all these retailers who ordered goods aren't going to get them to put on the shelves. There's going to be a cascade of fallout from this Hanjin bankruptcy. The supply chain is going to be heavily damaged. Products are not going to be delivered. The delivery trucks aren't going to be making any money. There's going to be nothing on the shelves for people to buy. Retailers are going to go out of business. This is an absolute mess, and it illustrates just how fragile our global economy has become under the ministrations of all these globalists. Now, Congress is starting to press the FBI for files going back to 2008 and the financial crisis. I think seeing James Comey get up there and essentially admit Hillary Clinton committed felony violations of Title 18, but we're not going to file any charges anyway, got people thinking about back in 2008, where we knew there was massive fraud going on with the mortgage-backed securities. We know there's been massive fraud in the global financial systems with the rigging of LIBOR, the rigging of gold, and silver prices, all kinds of fraud out there. In fact, there's an article that came out of Global Research saying that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has set up an online database of complaints against Wall Street and reveals it's just this gigantic house of horrors. How these people are just robbing their investors blind. And so this U.S. Congressman from New Jersey has demanded the FBI turn over all records related to the 2008 financial crisis to find out why no senior executives in the Wall Street firms were ever charged. Now, there's a little wrinkle in corporate law that you need to understand, and it is very simple. Yes, if you're a corporate officer in a corporation, you and your personal wealth are insulated from legal actions against the corporation. But that protection is voided if you committed an illegal act. At that point, your personal wealth becomes fair game. You can go to jail, and you should. And so Congress has decided it's overdue for a look. Now, banks that were out there screaming that Brexit winning the referendum was going to trigger a recession are now having to pull back from that. Britain's banks are doing very well. The Remain banks are now back to backing and supporting Brexit, saying it's not going to be a financial disaster. Let's just move forward with it. Germany is out there warning Great Britain not to make any trade agreements until the Brexit actually happens, which it's not Germany's place to say, and it makes sense only if Germany is absolutely convinced that Brexit will be prevented from happening. And we know that there is a huge push to void the first referendum and have a second one, so they have a second chance at stealing the election. And a great deal of pressure on Parliament to simply say, well, the referendum was advisory only and does not carry the force of law. Once you're a slave of the European Central Bank, you will stay a slave of the European Central Bank. In fact, that could be the global model of all private central banks everywhere. Once you're our slave, you're our slave forever. There is no escape. Nobody ever leaves the private central banks. Now, the good news for the people of Europe, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership is dead. The negotiations have gone nowhere, and Germany and France have said it is time to end the negotiations. Nothing is going to happen. Now, over in Laos, Obama is still flapping his gums and not thinking about what he's saying, and he came out with this very bizarre statement that Americans are lazy. And he said Americans are lazy about learning about other countries. They don't feel they need to learn about Canada or Mexico, which is ridiculous. I've been to both Canada and Mexico. I've been around the world. But this was pushing that whole integration. Drop the national borders and learn about every other country and multiculturalism and everything. And, of course, Obama's out there saying Americans' laziness explains their reluctance to embrace his policy of human-caused global warming. No, it's not laziness. It's several record-setting winters in a row that did that. And he accused Americans of being isolated and ignorant because the United States is such a big country. What a ridiculous thing to say in the age of the Internet. That is just absurd beyond belief. And I guess he didn't think it was going to get back here because of the corporate media. But once it was in the foreign press, got back here through the independent media. And people are angry. And they ought to be. And it displays the contempt professional politicians have for you. We'll be right back. And hello, hi America. Welcome back to the show here. And just to show you how ridiculous the PC movement is getting, CNN, this is not a joke, it's not a satire, it's not a parody. CNN came on out with a story that math is racist. And this came out of a book called Weapons of Math Destruction by Cathy O'Neill, in which she comes on out and says the very nature of mathematical analysis is increasing racism, whether it's targeted advertising, insurance, education, policing. O'Neill is saying that algorithms and big data intentionally target the poor and reinforce racism and amplify inequality. Well, I think it's time to make a point here. Equality sounds nice in political speeches, and it looks really good in the Declaration of Independence. The reality is that we are all different individuals. We're the product of our inherited qualities from our forebears and our life experiences. We're like snowflakes. No two of us are alike. And the reality is we are all different. None of us are equal. The intention in the Declaration of Independence, when they said all men are created equal, was the idea of getting rid of the idea of nobility. That all people started out at the same level and had the freedom to go as far as their temperament would let them go. Some people want to work and build, and other people just want to hang out and have fun. And that's fine. That's what freedom is supposed to be. But during the 60s and 70s, that original idea that all men and women are created equal was an attack on the idea of nobility and inherited position and inherited wealth, was scrubbed in favor of an absolutist approach that we're all supposed to be equal, no matter what. And when they started out with things like programs for equal opportunity, that was a good idea. The early feminists believed in equal access to credit and education. That was a good idea. But there was no way to show that this was having any kind of an effect at all, because we as individuals are different. Some of us simply work harder than others. Some of us are simply smarter than others. That's just the reality. And so equality was achieved not by having equal opportunities, but by mandating equality of outcome. And they started this horrible program. They couldn't bring the bottom up to match the top, so they started dragging the top down to match the bottom. I actually went through this. My first experience at teaching was in a California high school in the remedial math class. And during lunch breaks, the bright students would hang out in my classroom because we had some mechanical calculators and some other stuff they would play with. And we just started this little informal workshop on how to use a slide rule, which tells you how long ago I was doing this. And I got into serious trouble with the school administration because apparently the fact that we were having this workshop for slide rules got out, and parents were calling and saying, why isn't my kid in this little workshop? And, of course, my response was, if he wants to show up, he can be there. He didn't want to show up. And I was forced to shut this all down, and I was told that the guiding principle of the school system was everybody gets a guaranteed minimum education. Nobody's allowed to have anything above that. It's mandating equality of outcome. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to ride in an airplane whose pilot got the guaranteed minimum education in public school. I certainly don't want to be treated by a doctor who got the guaranteed minimum education in public school. I want the very best. I want the achievers. There's an author out there who's writing a new book on the restoration of meritocracy as a guiding principle of this country, and I think it's a darn good idea. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and let's see. Don't have any phone calls right now. So, now, as you know, earlier in the week, there was a gentleman named Seals, who'd been one of the activists in Ferguson, leading the protests about the police killing of Michael Brown. And he was found in his car, shot in the head, and the car was set on fire. This was the second Ferguson activist to be killed in the exact same manner. DeAndre Joshua was killed on the night in 2014 that Seals was with Michael Brown's family. He, too, was found shot in the head, and his body burned in the car. And, of course, the police promised they would investigate. They claimed there were no leads, no suspects. We're going to see exactly the same thing here. A lot of wet work going on. Now then, over in North Carolina, in Lowell, police officer James Paul Blair, 51, is in jail on a charge of statutory rape. And apparently he had been mentoring a 14-year-old girl to prove policemen are good. And the girl's mother said initially she was reluctant to allow this officer to become friendly with the daughter, but allowed it because, after all, if you can't trust the police, who can you trust? And apparently the daughter had indicated an interest in maybe becoming a police officer as well, so being mentored by one seemed like a good idea. And he seduced her, and they had sex apparently more than once, and she's now pregnant with his child. So I guess the mother isn't going to trust the police much anymore. Over in Atlanta, guy just minding his own business in his own home gets the full-on SWAT treatment. All of a sudden, with no warning, cops kick down his door, rough him up, wreck his place, because he's got marijuana growing in his backyard. Horror of horrors. Except it wasn't marijuana, it was okra. And apparently the police can't tell the difference between okra and marijuana. And they didn't bother to find out if they were accurate. They just went on the full SWAT treatment. And sometimes I worry when I'm making nanosilver, which we homebrew our own, and it involves chemistry ware, obviously. I'm worried about what happens if somebody looking through the back window in our place sees, oh, he's got chemistry ware, he must be making drugs. Would I get a chance to explain to the police, no, this is an antibacterial, that I'm making, and we make our own because it's cheaper that way, and it's not illegal to be doing what I'm doing, will I get a chance to explain that, or will we get the flashbang grenades through the window first? Now, Hillary Clinton is still out there with her war on guns and the Second Amendment. One of the comments she made at this Commander-in-Chief Forum, the debate-omania, not really a debate, but an incredible simulation. Gun control is part of her fight against terrorism. She thinks that, or she's claiming, that she will end terror attacks in this country by terrorists by disarming the law-abiding American citizens. And it's ridiculous. Now, over at Cracked Magazine, and I know it's a humor magazine, and they do a lot of goofy stuff, but they seem to have a strong sense of social activism. And they had an article, 5 Reasons Gun Control in the United States is a Lost Cause. And they basically go on down saying that everything the government is doing in the naming of curbing gun violence does not affect the violence. It merely disarms the American citizen. And that, I think, is their real agenda. And they go on, they mention how the U.S. government obsesses about the AR-15 when it's not a gun that is used very often at all for crime. The people who are talking about the huge number of gun deaths in this country never mention that most of those are suicides. And if guns aren't available, they'll jump out of a tall building. Hopefully hit a banker on the way to the ground. This belief that background checks will fix everything, when criminals will simply steal guns from people who have passed the background check. Everyone's always talking about mass gun grab, door-to-door gun grabs. They're not thinking about the logistics that would be involved. And, of course, there's that little pesky thing called the Bill of Rights. However, not to be discouraged by reality, out in California, on the November ballot, there is a ballot initiative calling for house-to-house confiscation of all guns. So I'm sure the vote riggers have already been assigned that one. Remember how they were able to cheat Prop 37, the one for GMO labeling? There were all these allegations about votes that had vanished, yes votes were disappearing, and all that other stuff. Our elections are a joke. And I've got a few emails from people who've been listening to my description of a way to have a trustworthy election. And they're saying it does make sense. It does work out. It doesn't really fully address the fraud in registration or mail-in ballots, but in terms of validating an actual election where people go to a polling place and vote, it's pretty much bulletproof. And I got to make up a graphic about that and get it out there. Because, yeah, there's no way to cheat it. There's no way to cheat it. Now then, over at Breitbart, they're talking about a new book, The War on Guns, Arming Yourself Against Gun Control Lies by John Lott Jr. and includes an interesting statistic. This is getting on back to the U.S. government's obsession with the AR-15 and the mass public shootings as an excuse to disarm the public. According to all available records, between 1950 and 2010, not one mass public shooting occurred where citizens were allowed to carry guns. In other words, the gun-free zones are the targets of choice. Gee, you didn't figure that out before? Gun-free zone means come on in, have fun, nobody can shoot back. And every time we talk about allowing people to conceal carry, the gun grabbers say, you want the Wild West, you want shootouts out in the street. No. The reason for having an armed citizenry is not to get in a shootout with the bad guys. The reason for having an armed citizenry is to give the bad guys a reason not to show up at all. And by the way, the West wasn't that wild. That was a propaganda myth promoted by Eastern industrialists who were afraid of losing all their workers once the West opened up. And you could go on out and homestead a place and have your own home, your own property, your own farm, your own cabin. That was very attractive to a lot of people. And the Eastern industrialists were seeing their workers, especially their smarter, skilled workers, leaving. And so they hired the media of the day to create this image of the Wild West being this horrible place of dangers. And I'm not saying it was perfectly safe. There were rattlesnakes and mountain lions, and there were criminals out there before law and order was established. But with everybody wearing guns, it wasn't a violent place. Do you know why the gunfight at the OK Corral became such an historical event? Because it was rare. You have a shootout like the OK Corral today in any major city, it's not going to get any news coverage at all because it's just part of that background noise. Like what you see up there in Chicago, the model for gun control for the nation. People wore guns on their hips to make them convenient. In fact, do you know where the origin of gun and holster came from? Was if you fell off your horse and you were being dragged by the stirrup, the gun was there at your hand so you could shoot your own horse before you were dragged to death. That's where that came from. It wasn't having the gun in the holster to do shootouts at high noon, opposite ends of Main Street, which, by the way, as far as historians can determine, that never actually happened. This fast draw at opposite ends of the street. It's as much a fantasy as some of the samurai movies you see coming out of Japan, of the amazing cuts that they do. It's part of our pop culture. It isn't real. So, now let's talk about computers. As I mentioned before, Apple is not releasing iPhone 7 pre-order numbers. Every time they come out with a new iPhone, the numbers are great, and they proclaim them and say, this is going to be a hit. Well, not for the iPhone 7. And already people are very upset over some decisions Apple has made. For one thing, they have gotten rid of the dedicated headphone jack. If you want sound out of your phone, other than the speaker, there are two ways to go about it. One is to use a wireless device, Bluetooth, which allows anybody in the area to intercept and listen to what you're hearing, or saying, for that matter. If you want to use headphones, they now go through that lightning port. That's become the one thing does all jack into the iPhone. And the only way that you can charge your phone and listen to it at the same time, you have to buy this accessory, the dock, which is about $50. And the wireless AirPods that replace the traditional headset and microphone, those are over $100 as well. Now, when you get your iPhone 7, you get an adapter that plugs into the lightning port and has a traditional headphone jack in it. If you lose it, and you will, because it's a little tiny thing, Apple will sell you a replacement for $9. Now, if you've seen the ads for the iPhone 7, they're making a big deal over the fact that this is the first waterproof iPhone. I challenge that because this iPhone 5 that I've got right here got soaked at one point, and I literally used canned air to blow the water out of it going through the headphone jack, and it came back to life. But they're claiming this is the new waterproof iPhone, but if you read it carefully, the warranty that comes with the iPhone 7 does not cover damage by water. They're sort of hedging their bets on that one. A lot of people are saying it's probably going to be better to wait for the iPhone 8. Well, I'm not buying another iPhone until this one actually dies, or I kill it, because I'm rough on my hardware. I don't need any more phone than what I've got right now. And there's always the possibility that new iPhones or new Androids are going to be loaded up with more ways for the government to spy on you and mess with your life, because that's what they love to do. They think it's their divine right. Now, as you know, there was a huge rush of companies getting into the smartwatch business. And it turns out Apple and Google really didn't think it was that good of an idea. But Google is obsessed with game theory, and they basically came up with the idea that if Google didn't come out with a smartwatch, Apple would and take all the spoils. And as it turns out, smartwatches are not really doing very well. The screens are too small. Certainly for the Android platform, they don't integrate well, because I actually bought one for my lady love, and it was more trouble to use than it was worth, and we wound up just throwing it in the drawer. And so now there is a huge buildup of unsold smartwatches. If you want to get one, I assume the price is going to come on down. But before you do that again, you need to learn from Intel, because Intel came out with their own smartwatch called the Basis. And it apparently had not been fully tested when it was shipped. And as it turned out, a lot of them would generate so much heat from their batteries and processors, they were literally burning the wrists of people wearing them. So Intel issued a recall and offered a 184-pound refund for their ARM slabs. Unfortunately, the payouts delivered by Western Union are, for some reason, bouncing at British banks. They're saying it's a computer problem with the bank. Have we let our technology become too decadent? Has it become so bloated and overly complex that we can't maintain it any longer? We need to address that question, because society's come up with amazing technology, and when they reach the point where they can't maintain it anymore, it comes apart pretty fast. Ancient Rome was the same way. Rome invented all kinds of stuff. Concrete, aqueducts. When they weren't able to maintain it any longer, it all started coming apart, and everything dependent on those technologies collapsed. They're now basically saying that the recent disruption at Vienna's International Airport was a hack. They think it was politically motivated. The Interior Ministry is investigating, and the Austrian media is pointing the finger at Turkey. How can they possibly know who's behind the hack? I have the same concern with that I have with Hillary's people out there saying that Russia hacked the DNC emails. They can't find the ransomware writers. They can't find the malware writers. They can't find the people who are flooding our mailboxes with Viagra ads. And we're supposed to take their word for it that they know Russia, or in this case Turkey, was behind the hack. No, it just does not make any sense. Now, another story coming out of the Daily Mail, and this is going to make a lot of people nervous. People with lost or stolen contactless credit cards or debit cards are being warned that fraudsters can still use them for as much as 8 months after they are canceled. And as you know, there's been a recent trend in credit and bank companies where they will no longer absorb the losses from fraud and theft. You're on the hook. Clinton has blamed Hurricane Hermione on climate change. Another reason to vote against Hillary. She's fully on board with carbon taxes. Al Gore is out there saying that climate change deniers will be equated with racists and justice despised one day. So basically, after several record-setting winters and another one on the way, Al Gore and his carbon Nazis are reduced to defending their position by name-calling. Global warming deniers are racists. It's ridiculous. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and finishing up on human-caused global warming. It is snowing in Wellington, New Zealand, which is significant when you remember that down where they are, this is springtime. And apparently there's some road closures that they're having to deal with. I'm watching on Fox News, and apparently they're reporting that Syrian forces, aided by Russia and Iran, are making strong gains in Aleppo. And the U.S. is kind of at a loss how to stop this. Because if Syria and Russia and Iran kick out all those terrorists, the U.S. doesn't have any excuse to be there. unless they want to go on back and say, all right, well, we need to get rid of the evil dictator who uses gas on his own people. And we've all heard that before. Now, do you remember at one point during the controversy over GMO foods, there was a study done over in France where instead of feeding a test population of rats GMO food for 3 months and then saying there's no problem, these scientists raised an entire generation of rats from birth to death, and they were in 3 groups. First group, all natural food. Second group, GMO corn. Third group, GMO corn sprayed with glyphosate. And they monitored the health. And the first thing discovered is that at month number 4, 1 month after Monsanto's scientists had stopped their tests to claim it was perfectly safe, the rats started developing huge tumors and other serious medical problems. And reproductive issues, shortened lifespan, serious problems. And the study was published, and then all of a sudden it was retracted. It was never refuted. It was simply made to go away. Well, there's an organization, the U.S. Right to Know, has obtained emails of correspondence between Monsanto and A. Wallace Hayes, the editor-in-chief of the formerly respected scientific journal Food and Chemical Toxicology, and basically detail how Monsanto was, in fact, directly involved in the suppression of this study. Now, if Monsanto could refute the study, if they had a way to prove that the scientists had done something wrong, they would have done that publicly. But when you move to suppress a report, that's as good as admitting that it's accurate and true. And Monsanto has become the poster child for corporations' abuse of the general population. They don't care if they make you sick. They just want your money. Surprisingly, CNN has come on out with an admission that the new... Oh, there's the music. I'm going to save this for tomorrow. I'm going to save this for tomorrow because it deserves a little bit of time. There's the music. Time for me to get out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. And reminder, the Lady Claire will be with us in our third hour tomorrow. So we'll be back tomorrow on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Until then, you are all part of the independent media. Take what you learn here and share it with everybody else. Have a good evening. Aloha, America.